Come on, dogs. I'm making a video. Don't you know I'm making a video? So, somebody was asking about passband. So, passband is not bandpass. So, a bandpass box is sort of the same thing as passband. So, passband is the frequencies that you want the speaker to play, whatever driver that is, whether it's a tweeter, a mid, or a woofer. A bandpass is a type of filter that you can put it through. So like, this would be the mid, this would be a bandpass filter. And it's just it has a high pass and a low pass. Now a pass band is what the speaker plays after you've crossed it over. So the woofer here, this would be what, at 100, let's say 100 hertz. Let's do good old Rockford X cards on this. And then we'll do, just for typical purposes, we'll do 5K. So in this diagram, the woofer is going to play from 20 hertz if it can, which it probably can't. 20 hertz, so it ends up looking like that. So the woofer plays from here all the way up to 100 hertz, and then 100 hertz, the mid takes over, and then plays up to 5K, and then from 5K is the tweeter. So this is very typical. Now, somebody was asking me about passband on like a coaxial, and typically what you want to do is you only need like a simple. There's a company, I forget the name of the company that marketed them. They marketed them for years, called bass blockers. And all it is a simple capacitor. Typically it's a 200 microfarad capacitor, which is it? No, I'm sorry, 100 microfarad capacitor, which at 4 ohms is basically a high pass filter at 200 hertz. Now, when you're using a 6 dB crossover like that, a simple, one element crossover, you usually want to go an octave above what you're trying to hit. So when I use a 100 microfarad 4 ohm load, that's going to cross up 200 hertz. Will be what's called the half power mark, or the minus 3 dB mark when it comes down 3 dB. And so that's what you calculated at. And the problem is, though, is it's going to be a real shallow. It'll be more like that. Actually, even more shallow than that. That's probably like a 12, and this is more like an 18 or a 24 dB per octave slope. That's what that is, by the way, when they say how many dB per octave. So remember, an octave is a doubling or a halving of frequency, and then how many decibels it's going to be down at that point. So, but anyways, a high pass filter, a simple bass blocker, is what we typically recommend for a lot of these. Like a 6-inch coaxial, 6x9, 4x10, all those sorts of things. Now, on some of the smaller coaxials and mids and things like that, what was it? Basically like a 5 1/4 or a 4 1/2, definitely a 3 1/2. We typically go another octave up, and so what you would do is basically put 2 capacitors in series like that, and then this would be like 100 microfarad. And this would be 100 microfarad. Now, the thing about capacitors is when you wire them in series like that, if they're both equal, it's going to be half of the original value. So this is going to end up being 50 microfarad. And then, so under a 4 ohm load, it's going to create what's called capacitive reactance, and it's going to create an impedance slope up, which ends up looking like, when you go back to frequency response is very similar to passband, but frequency response is typically all the frequencies that a speaker can play. So when you do a frequency response on a woofer, you want to do a complete sweep, which ends up looking like, let's say it's on a woofer, it's going to look like this, and then it has like, this is probably like a typical PA woofer, where it has a slow roll off at, like, say 1K, like the 3 dB down point. So this is full power. This is half power down, which is 3 dB. So this is down 3 dB, and then this will be like at 2K or something like that. So what was I saying? Shit, I totally forgot what I was saying. But anyways, that's the 3 dB down point. Fuck, I totally forgot. Let's see, 50 microfarad. Well, I'll go back to what I was really talking about was mids. So typically on a smaller mid, like 4.5, 3.5, say even some 5 1/4, you want to cross them up an octave higher than the original 100 hertz. And so this goes at 50 microfarad, goes at 1 octave above that. So it'll be 400 hertz, and then it'll be a negative 6 slope at 400 hertz. But again, 6 dB slope is pretty shallow, and so typically it'll cross up in real life, like where you could actually hear it at maybe like a negative 6 dB down at like 200 hertz. So, but I think that's what I wanted to cover was basically just bass blockers, the idea of bass blockers. The other thing was somebody else brought up, like what's better, Bessel or Butterworth or Linkwitz-Riley. Those are what's funny is Ted Turner of Speakerworks fame here in Phoenix, he's the one that actually taught me about that. He goes, if you read like a radio electronics book, like, if you want to get a degree in electronics engineering, you can read these old radio books from the 40s and 50s that basically what that describes is it's a cue, the cue meaning how steep the slope is. The slope can still be 12 dB down, but it depends on how quickly it gets there and how the shape of the curve. And that's the only difference between Butterworth, Linkwitz-Riley, and what was the other one? Bissell, I think it is. Anyways, and all those guys, all they did was take credit for something that already existed. So, sometimes if you want to be forever famous in something, you just name it after yourself. So, which is, true of streets and countries and some other things. So in that case, if you look it up, all it is like different variations on the same thing, which creates a different rate of roll off. And as far as hearing the difference, good luck. Let me know if you can hear the difference. Typically, most people cannot. In fact, 9 times out of 10, you cannot. So also the same thing goes with, like conductors, speaker wire, things like that, especially you get into, there's a great forum that I'm on in Facebook called Audio Bullshit, and we just make fun of all the audio companies that try to sell you, fucking $10,000 wire and shit like that. So none of that stuff means anything. And if you're buying into that, and I've talked about this before about even if you're buying into brand, there's whole countries that laugh at you when you ask for a brand. Like when people ask for Yinlong fucking lithium batteries, they laugh at you because all it is a standard lithium battery that they already make, and it can be made by anybody. It can be made by Sony or Panasonic or Hitachi or any of those companies, and then they just put a sticker on it. They put a heat shrink label on it. So and lots of companies did this. Lightning Audio is probably the most famous in my mind that did this. They saved the Philips factory in, I think, South Carolina. And the only people that were consuming, 1 farad and 2 farad capacitors at the time were like elevator and escalator companies, because when you start those motors up, you need a big capacitor to have a charge already built in, so the motor doesn't stall out. But they actually, Lightning Audio actually saved the company from going out of business because at the time. Because nobody else was consuming capacitors this large, and so for a long time, Lightning Audio was the only company that could say "Made in the USA" on their capacitors, and they were re-sleeving them because I was there re-sleeving them for them. They were re-sleeving them for Rockford, Bostwick, Orion, and PPI started to come out with accessories, but they ended up taking a dirt nap and selling out to ADST, and then of course Lightning Audio. And there was a slight difference between some of this was in 98, 99. There was a slight difference that they actually got a different type of capacitor where they would treat the aluminum in acid and etch it to give it more surface area. But we know now, if you actually also watch Robert Murray Smith, who has really just tapped into the huge resource that is Google Scholar. And I'll put a link to Robert's channel too about his work into batteries and capacitor technology and using carbon and those sorts of things. And eventually I want to show you guys how to make your own 60 kilofarad capacitor at home. But I got to do it myself as a proof of concept. And then you can use that to, shock your friends or turn your old shitty pick 'em up truck into an electric vehicle. So that's what I want to do. But anyways, that was a quick video just to answer the question about crossovers. One of the reasons why you want to cross over a mid so that it doesn't play bass is to help it play louder and cleaner. When you use that bass blocker or any sort of high pass filter on a mid, it allows the mid to do the job that it can do much better. And so a lot of times people will ask me, hey, should I change out the mids in my vehicle? And typically if your vehicle is shit, even 2007 or even 2010, and they still play and they're not all rotted out, then all you got to do is just put a high pass filter on them. And you can do that either at the speaker location, which is sometimes hard because you got to take off each door. It's better to do it at the amplifier or even at the head unit, because most people will change out the head unit to add something like Bluetooth or something. And then either have a deck that has a high pass filter built into it. If you don't, if you have like a little cheapy deck that you get from Walmart, all you do is on each positive one, put a 100 microfarad cap on the positive positive wire of each speaker, and now you have 4 fucking high pass filters on those. And then you add the subwoofer. Let the subwoofer do the heavy lifting, because most factory systems, they don't put a dedicated subwoofer in there, and so they really ride those 6.5s. And typically, like my friend Jeff, the other day, he has a fancy Mercedes car, and they put 4 6.5s in the 2 doors, the 2 front doors, which sounds great up to a point, but when you want real bass, then that's when you need a real subwoofer. And so he's like, should I switch them out? I'm like, no, those are really good speakers. Just put a bass blocker, or if you want to get super fancy, use one of the DSPs that we have on sale, or even just electronic, or even just a passive crossover on those. And they'll end up sounding really great, because the smaller the speaker is, the easier it is to transmit higher frequencies. The larger and heavier it is, the easier it's able to make low frequencies. And so I get into a lot of, I don't want to say arguments, but there's a lot of bullshit on the internet, and I really wish you guys would do your research. Some people are, they want a dedicated mid bass, and really what they really want is you just use an equalizer to make the woofer act more mid bassy. That's really all you need. But people get, OCD problems, and they get obsessed about, well, this guy has this and this guy has this, and it's there's many reasons why they made those design choices. And why, what is it? Why buy 2 cars when you just, you can kill your wife? So, that's, I mean, that of course is a joke. But you don't always have to spend money in order to solve your problems. Sometimes it's really just the way that you apply the technology to what you already have. Me growing up poor, I wanted to master all of it, and that's why I did. And that's why some of the solutions that I come up with are not what other people promote. And you got to remember, other people are always promoting something because they're probably selling it. So, or the worst part is, they don't know any better. And so, that's why I say Bandpass boxes are shit, because they're shit. They do something that God, it's such an overly complicated way to do something. The most simple and affordable way to really get maximum bass in a small space, sealed box. And then whatever you're not getting out of it, you use an EQ for and more power. Now, you're limited on what the subwoofer can take, but you're limited on what the subwoofer can take anyway. So you don't need to build some weird bandpass and all this other shit, and that just takes up more space. So there's easier, more elegant design solutions to all of this stuff. And I would love to answer your questions, but the biggest blowback, resistance that I get from people is that this doesn't match what I've heard. And I'm like, well, because you don't understand what you've heard. So you've probably heard something 5th and 6th generation on something. And, I think I've said this story before. Ted Turner told me this as well. And that was great about Ted, is Ted was real frank with me. He knew that I was not going to buy anything retail from him, and I think he kind of wanted to pass the torch to me, which was really nice. And so he let me in on a lot of audio secrets. You know, I remember him one time. He was showing me how to recone, and some guy came in, and Ted had still had a bunch of the speaker work stuff, and they made a speaker, a simple three-way speaker called the Buckingham. And they would sell them for like $700-800 a pair, and it was just it was handmade and it was American made, which was rare, especially even then. This was in 2004, 5. No, even earlier than that. I knew Ted from way back. Or no, it was after the auction. Yeah, it was after the auction. So we're talking about 2004, 2005. So, anyways, this guy comes in and he really is. He says he's in love with Speakerworks and the work that his father-in-law did, Carl, over at the Speakerworks over on Indian School in Phoenix. And he's like, well, I got a set of Buckinghams left. And he goes, oh, those are a little expensive, And I, of course, I was just silent watching. I didn't say anything to anybody about it. And I watched this guy fork out $600 for a pair of the most simplest three-way speakers. And then I asked, was there something I'm missing? Was there like some sort of elaborate crossover? He goes, nope, simple cap on the tweeter, simple cap on the mid, and the woofer had no inductor. So again, you have to understand your design choices and why, as Ted taught me, keep it simple, stupid. You don't have to do something elaborate just to impress people unless that's what you're trying to do. And that's what most of audio is trying to do. They're trying to show that they're special, that you should send your money their way because they've done something special. Come to find out, they haven't really done anything special. It just looks fancy, and it panders to your insecurities and your OCDs. That's what a brand does. Otherwise, it's like, who makes a better sugar, C&H or Piggly Wiggly? Guess what? They're both made by either Hawaiians and now just Filipinos. So it's not even fucking made in America anymore, and it's just sugar. It's the same fucking thing, just under a different brand. And C&H sugar will cost more than Piggly Wiggly sugar every time because C&H has spent a lot of money on branding. That's why they run ads. That's why they, if you look up on YouTube, I'll put a link in the description. The C&H ads were fucking great, and then when you look at what C&H was, and it was really just sort of a shipping monopoly. On controlling the sugar market. It's really kind of evil, but they didn't want to say, hey, we're an evil sugar company. They wanted to say, we have sunshine and smiles and we only exploit brown people, and so it's okay for white people to buy our sugar. So and if you look at those ads, they did a great job on spending those ads. And so that's why even to this day, I think it's changed hands 3 or 4 times since I don't know, whatever. I'll put a link on the Wikipedia page to C&H, but again, this trick, this marketing gimmick is everywhere. And you guys, especially younger people, and especially people of lower economic socio status or whatever, which is really just saying brown people and just brown people and people of another country and things like that, are easily manipulable because you're not as savvy as cracker-ass white people. Cracker-ass white people like to act, especially millennials, like to act like they're really educated and woke, and they're not either. So they just buy into a different level of marketing. That's what the fucking hipster look is all about. And they're buying $30, $50 fucking beard wax, which is, just garbage. And so they buy into that bullshit too. It's just a different level of marketing. And so, but if you have a keen eye, you can use the knowledge that that you learned from me and see, that the emperor doesn't have new clothes. He's fucking naked, or he's in his underwear. And again, but you don't have to laugh at him and you don't have to make fun of him because he'll cut your fucking head off. What you can do though is go, I'm not going to buy from that same vendor. I'm going to go, and that's where the decision comes is, do you do good or do you do bad? Do you exploit people's trust with your own version of the emperor's clothes? Or do you, quietly let other people know that this is kind of bullshit. And if you want, some real flannel. I know some guys that were in the 90s and they have some leftover flannel that I can sell you. So, but again, what I love about audio is that this is backed by science. There's proof. Now, whether or not you can hear the difference, that's something that is subjective. And if you think you can hear the proof, then, like I said, I usually give people 3 strikes on something stupid. If you want something stupid from me, I will try to talk you out of it 3 times. After that 3rd time, guess what? I'm taking your fucking money, and I don't have any guilt or problems doing it because I've tried to tell you not to do it 3 times. So just ask Curtis Navarro. I tell him not to do stupid stuff all the time. And then he still gives me money, and I go, okay, fine, I'll take your money. So I want to have a good conscience when I sell you something. And the biggest thing is really, I just don't want your dumbass coming back to me complaining about that. What the usual complaint is, I kept it at the same level, but for some reason the woofer is frozen, and then I open it up and the woofer is fucking charred, and the gains are all the way up, the bass boost is all the way up, and all that other bullshit. And it's like I barely had it turned up. It's like, you're a fucking liar. You're a piece of garbage. Get the fuck out of here. So, and that's my policy, is that I don't want to deal with your dumb abusive ass, and I don't need to, and that's why I'm very short with people. It has nothing to do with bipolar or any bullshit like that. I've been down this fucking road, and I'm tired of dumb, poor people coming in and acting dumb and poor. Like, quit it. Like, that's why I'm trying to educate people, so that you can be a smarter person, so that you're not just a dummy that goes, hey, why is the engine light on? That sort of thing. And it's, well, I did take care of my car. I put gas in it. Like, you can be smarter than that. You don't have to be that dumb. So, but I think that was it. All I wanted to cover on the crossovers and stuff like that. But typically the crossover points I use are actually higher than most people, which is 100 hertz to about 150 hertz. Right when you can start hearing a little bit of vocals out of the woofer, that's about what you want, because that way you get a lot of the mid bass that you're normally missing, and you don't put that stress on the rest of the system, like the mids and the tweeters. Some people complain that they can hear voice and they don't like that out of the woofer, but most of the time the woofer's far back enough or in the trunk where those high frequencies that come out of the woofer get eaten up by the acoustics in the back. That is a bandpass filter. That is a natural high pass filter coming out of there. So, and that's what all a bandpass is. It's just a high pass filter on there, but it's acoustic. So you don't really have to put an inductor in there or anything else like that to help knock it out. But anyways, read the Loudspeaker Cookbook. You can download a free version now for like $10 online, which is the best way to do it. That way you save a tree and until we can grow enough hemp to help the planet. But anyways, I love you guys. I will talk to you later.